An unshakable faith. We believe that the heart of a man is a treasure trove of untold stories, powerful lessons, and profound wisdom. Through authentic dialogues and insightful discussions, we aim to unlock these treasures, one story at a time. So, whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or simply a moment of reflection, you're in the right place. Get ready to be challenged, inspired, and transformed. And now, to guide you through this journey of discovery, please welcome your host, a visionary leader and a true catalyst for change, Dwayne Dwyer, but we affectionately know him as the Mindset Coach.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of the Hearts to Men podcast. It's Friday evening, and before I even greet these fine gentlemen, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to start off with greeting the chat, because at the end of the day, the reason why we are here every single Friday night is to give a word and to have a conversation and to be here for the people that are watching this episode and the people in the chat. So with that being said, I am going to have a stab at it, and I am going to try to name out each individual that I see name by name. So first of all, up to bat, I see Crystal Everett. Thank you so much for being here this evening. The Journey, appreciate you for being here tonight. Adrian Artist, again, thank you for being here tonight. Nick D says, hello, happy Friday. Thank you for being here this afternoon. His Divine Appointment, thank you for being here this evening. I see Abe, good evening to you. Miss Teresa Austin, good evening to you as well. Lisa Dove Washington, good evening to you. And Miss Lisa Keys. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight. While you at it and while you are being welcomed into this podcast tonight, go ahead and hit that like button, share it with somebody, and all of those good things. Now that we've gotten some greetings taken care of this evening, I want to say hello, good evening, happy Friday, welcome to all my brothers here, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dwayne Dwyer, the Mindset Coach, son of Timothy, the available man, and last but not least, poor man's Dr. Phil, Mr. Shift Happens. And I am your host with the most tonight, along with the other co-hosts, the Uncle Junior, also known as Consistency Coach. So again, gentlemen, how is everybody doing this Friday evening?
Man, I'm doing well. You came on like a ringmaster. I thought we was about to have a circus for a minute to wait.
We might, depend on how this topic go tonight.
I'm doing well, bro.
Coach, what you over there shotting over there? Or was that cough syrup?
Hey, man, I got my tea. Leave me alone.
Tea it is.
And the reason why it's red.
What about you, Mr. Gaddy?
Son
of Timothy?
Man, I'm doing good. I was just over there looking at, the human thesauruses with his teapot to match his vocabulary. He looked real eloquent, like he pours his tea with his pinky up. I'm sorry.
I mean, I liked it. I only got a quick glance of the teapot, but it looked fancy. It looked nice. Like, I like it.
Hey,
Roland got something over there.
I'm saying, pull me
what else y'all got? We got
I can't reach. My arm ain't that long, bro. But I would, though. I would. Trust me, I would.
So
not only would I pour it, I would bring it to you.
So let's hold them up again. Let's see what we got. We got tea. We got a metal tin cup. Roland got a nice glass over there. Look expensive. And he got a mug, man. I see it. I like it. Why
does your cup look like the thing that we had in our canteens, though?
It is. It's a tin.
I like that.
It's a tin cup. I got about 3 of them.
Oh,
I got
okay.
different ones. Yeah. So I got a blue one. I remember like when I was young and I used to spend the night over my grandma's house, and she would make coffee for my granddad, and she would make it in these little blue speckled tin cups. So I always wanted one. So a few years ago, I ended up grabbing one. Deshelle bought me this one. So I got a couple of them, man. And you know, for some reason, I don't know, I just like drinking all of these little tin cups.
I like those.
Yeah, I like it, man. So man, hey, shout out to Shell. She just jumped in. Hi, chat. Good to see you. Anybody that I did miss, I apologize. Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode. We are really excited and glad that you have joined us and decided to take time out of your evening to be with us this evening. We are going to jump into it, but before I do, I just want to throw something up on the screen. And what I'm going to throw up there is, you know, tonight we're going to be talking about living by your core. The power of morals and principles in a modern world. So what I did, I went online and I found out that these seem to be the top 10 morals to guide a meaningful life. So for right now, and I just kind of want to throw these up there, and then I just kind of want us to kind of go around the room even before we get started. And, you know, as you look at these, you know, if any of these things jump out to you, you know, where you may see where, you know, these are really something that, you know, I really strive to, you know, be part of my life, or, you know, throw these out, or let's add these to it or not. But I kind of want to just start off with 10 of them right here before we really get into it. So us and the chat will kind of have an idea of what morals really are. So with that being said, gentlemen, what do y'all think about these top 10 morals right now? And I'm going to read them real quick, and then I want y'all to just let me know what y'all think about them. So these top 10 morals to guide a meaningful life are integrity, respect, compassion, gratitude, responsibility, humility, fairness, courage, perseverance, and generosity. So, gentlemen, what are your thoughts on these 10?
I'm kind of torn when it comes to morals, because morals change with whomever the person may be. They can have their own set of morals and values. So when it comes to, I would agree that people should have a standard. People should have a way of living that doesn't disrespect, doesn't put down another. That, you know, there should be that. But when it comes to saying that that's what directs my life and my path, I would always defer to the law, statutes, and commandments personally, because I think that's where, and I don't want to get into that part, but that's where some people went wrong when it came to the establishment of this place over here, because morals weren't necessarily morals for everyone. Morals said that they had a standard of living for themselves, but when it came to everybody else, it wasn't so.
Would there be any of these morals right here that you would take out and disregard, or saying that
I don't think you take out any. I think that, but when it comes to how, where people may put one above the other and say, well, or they may kind of teeter-totter with some and play with it. It depends on the person, because somebody may say, well, this may be morally incorrect over here, but then over here, their morals, you can see it in the White House. Well, oh, we are opposed to abortion, yet if the child is here, you know, hey, whatever, they got to get it how they live.
Okay.
I don't think, you know, I can't name all 10 of them back to you, but as you were naming them, none of them stood out as I have to remove any. I think when we look at these, and I'm assuming if you're saying top 10 morals that, hey, X amount of people were pulled, and these were the commonalities. These were the top 10
Pretty much.
most commonly stated ones, right? And all of that is good for being a good person. And it is, and it all boils down to what that looks like. Kind of like Roland kind of said, like morals change per person, right? And these were the commonalities. But I also say what each one of those things look like is also particular to a person, right? And this is why I always preface by saying, like, when we talking, whether we're talking about relationships, friendships, whatever, it's always like, are we speaking from the same foundation? When you say generosity, when you say you must be generous, what do you mean by I must be generous? You mean that I must every now and then I gotta make sure I give a homeless person some food, or I'll do something like that. That's generosity to some people, But if we coming from the same source, I'm gonna tell you that these people who formed a community of believers sold all their stuff and distributed out to where no one had a need or lack, right? Is that generosity? Like, what is that? Who in whose eyes are we speaking these things to? So I don't have a problem with any of them, just where are we pulling the foundation of what that looks like, to me, is my question always.
So I'm going to avoid dissecting the list. When I look at the list, I won't remove any of them. I think from a common humanity perspective, I think it's each person's responsibility to bear every last one of them. And I think as you go along, I think we will get more in detail about what these look like, so forth and so on. So I'm just going to leave it right there. I'm not taking anything out. I think that's a good list for everybody to embody.
Yeah, and I like exactly what everybody said, but some that Roland said is actually, it came down. This actually is actually the second question, but I'm gonna jump right to it since Roland already said, and he talked about things that morals evolve over time. So I think I heard that. If I didn't hear that correctly, Roland, let me know. But I do want to go more into it. So what do you mean when you say that morals change or evolve over time, or they, because I understand they may be different for different people, but I kind of want to know how they evolve or how they may change.
I was listening to a conversation the other day where a man was talking about how, he was making it, how in the scripture in the Old Testament, the Most High would tell the people, the children of Israel, to kill all the men, women, children, whatever, kill everybody. And then he said, so if Jesus was back then, this is his words, he was saying that, so he is morally incorrupt, but because he's telling people to kill someone. And that's where he was going with that thing. And I was thinking, no, he was saying that anybody that stands against me deserves death. And this is not Christ saying this, but this is the most highest point, because these people were totally against him. So morally today, we would say, oh, that's wrong. But the scripture says if you are against him, that's what you deserve. That's your plight in life. Not that it changes to where now we can fly different color flags because we're trying to treat people right. I agree with treating everybody right. You should not disrespect anyone. But for me to go against my beliefs, to stand on your side, I'm going against my beliefs. So I'm saying that my morals change to fit people instead of saying it's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore.
Do you think all of them are the same? I mean, you think all of them have changed, or you think some of them are, or do you think that's a standard across the board, or you think that some of them evolve and some of them kind of remain constant?
If you're dealing with morals can always change. Morals depend on the person. That's why we say romance, but romance comes from Greek and Roman philosophy. And when you're looking at that, because they romance or they put it in the way that they saw it. So when it came to how we see things today, we're like, oh, we see it through their eyes, just pushed down some centuries. And we don't even know. We just think it's the same way how life has always been.
I guess I'm thinking maybe a little too far into things. Because I'm looking at, what in what space are we talking about morals, right? Because I think morals are cultural. I'll say it like that, right? Even if we're talking about scripture, the scripture is cultural. So we can make it religious if we want, but it's cultural, right? That's how morals are. Even in our community, depending on where you grew up, you were taught different type of morals. You're more prone to say yes, ma'am, yes, sir, if you're from the South. Now I was taught the same thing, but it's more commonly taught in the South, right? That's a part of that that respect to your elders, right? That's part of your morals. So some things are cultural. I think that we strive in America to make morals evolve because we want to be so multi-faceted when it comes to culture, like to the point to where it's almost like we want everyone to water down their culture for the sake of my comfort. Like, oh, what you mean you're not Americanized? What you mean you grew up in Africa and now you come to America and you don't want to act like how we act? What do you mean? And that's what we do. I remember in high school we did it to kids that didn't grow up in America and then they came to America to finish high school or whatever. Their family moved here. We used to try to shame them into acting like us. Like, what do you mean you act like you from where? Y'all don't have no shoes. Like, that's what we thought. It wasn't true, but what we did was we tried to evolve their morals and their values and their way of living to ours. So it's cultural. So this is another one of those things to where if your culture, if your belief is a part of who you are, then no, it shouldn't. But if you find with it evolving and changing, if you're more keen to being chameleon like, you blend into where you go to your environment, then they will evolve, they will change. And I can't say should, because that good or bad is on you. Now that's where it comes back to me to what is our foundation of speaking. My foundation of speaking always going to be scriptures. And so from there, no, because the one who gave us those values are the same today, yesterday, and forever. So
I guess I'll be the oddball here. Principles remain the same. They govern our way of life. They govern the way you do things. Morals are the things. Morals will evolve based upon my understanding. And well, let me say it like this: morals will evolve based upon the way I express those things as I continue to grow according to how principles govern my lifestyle. So when we look at principles should not change. They should remain the same, especially if I have a core foundation of a good core foundation of principles to start off with. As I move forward, those morals, now I can say those are the things that may come from my culture, but they should not supersede the principles. I think a lot of the things that we see a lot when it comes down to it, especially as I listen to a lot of this, it sounds more as though that, and I'm not saying that that's what you guys are saying, but what you'll see is people try to take morals and put morals over top of principles. Well, morals can look different from person to person, culture to culture, whether we're talking about geographic location, whatever that looks like. principles should always be the thing that governs the way that I live my life. It is the thing that gives me direction. It's the thing that gives me purpose. It is the thing that allows me to respect all of humanity, regardless of what your culture is. The morals that are given to me now, they may look different culturally, but again, those things don't supersede principles. So morals will evolve based upon my understanding of them and how I express them, to where principles should remain the same.
I like how you put that. I think that morals are should be principles acted out. If you want to, if I say it like that. But I think that when it comes to morals, morals establish what the principle established as right and wrong. The principle is point blank. It is what it is. Now, morally, I can say, well, I don't see it like that, so I will teeter-totter on this side and allow a little leeway over on this end instead of going. The principle says when we in the 90s when we were in the military, it was don't ask, don't tell. I think that later, early 2009, don't ask, don't tell. And then you had other people getting in office. They say, no, we can't have that. So they switched it. So now, morally, I can disagree with a person, but the principle is what it is. I mean, the principle, like you said, the principle says this. Morally, I may take a stance because of how I was raised, because of what I believe, and now I've changed what it was meant for, and now I'm morally incorrupt, but I'm not thinking it is, because I'm morally right and righteous in my own eyes. That's why it can change, because I can change it depending on how I feel. If in my community, if this is correct, it is what it is.
So I'm thinking I'm disagreeing with Coach. And I'm thinking that principles can evolve too, just like morals. However, I may agree with him based off of this question. Who determines the principles?
Great question. It should be a governing body.
Okay, so I remember having like this I guess it was a principle that I kind of learned early on. Now, good, bad, or indifferent, I learned it and I picked it up. And it was pretty much like respect everybody, but stick to your own kind, right? So there was a principle, at least I'm thinking that this was a principle. And this was for a portion very early on in my life, kind of how I moved, kind of how I dealt with things. I kind of stuck to my own kind. Not saying I didn't talk to other people, but as far as getting a certain level of closeness with people, I kind of stuck to my own kind, right? So with that being, even though I've always had friends from all different types, my close knit have always been to stick to your own kind. But then as I got older, I realized that that's not a principle that I really wanted to follow anymore. So I abandoned that. And I was like, I understand it for people who want to live their lifestyle that way. However, for me, I didn't want to live it like that. So I chose to change that type of principle in my life. So, and that's why I asked, who determines the principle? Because in that situation, it wasn't a governing body who chose the principle. It was people or life or growing up or the information that I was receiving in that time period of my life, not necessarily a governing authority. So I don't know. Am I agreeing with you based off of the principles part and the governing authority of the principles?
So, first of all, no fair, because you said you agree and disagree.
I don't
know.
know.
I got you. I got you.
I am or not. It's not about agreeing or not. I'm just kind of want to see where I'm at.
But what you just articulated, I would call a principle, right? It's a combination of a principle, respect everybody, and then stick to your own kind. That's not a principle. That is like an instruction that was given to you by somebody who you may have had a lot of respect for. And when you look at stuff of that nature, that's not a principle. Those are like instructions that are given. So when
Okay.
we jam them together, I tend to call it a principle because we believe it might be a principle. We may move like it governs us and it makes us decide things in a particular manner. But as we get older, we realize certain things, because trust me, I got the same instructions too. I got it. I want to be transparent. I got the exact same instructions, except mine came a little bit more harsh. And I tell it to you off camera because I can't say it here. Right. But it's like this is what was given to you. And it's like you don't want to disappoint the person that gave it to you. So it's infusing a principle of respect everybody with their particular way of life, which means don't, cross over to another ethnicity or whatever the case may be. I'll say it out this just like that. I don't think we can honestly use that as a governing body to this question, because at the end of the day, the old saying goes, when you know better, you do better, right? So it's not that if that's what works for that person or them or whatever the case may be, that's fine. I'm not against that. But again, does not respect everybody, does it not eliminate anybody, and stick to your own kind. Like, I'm not saying sticking to your own kind goes against the principle, but again, that is not a principle itself in this time frame. I want to say it that way. In this time frame, that's not a principle itself. Now, if you want to go back long time ago, that was a principle. But at the end of the day, we can't rightfully say that it is a principle now. That might be a measure of protection per se, given some historical references and facts and things of that nature. But that's the only piece I would add to that.
I like that, and I'm with you. But I think I would add to that. I think that it is a principle because the governing authority is his mama, is his daddy, is everybody who came over him.
So great point. When does that authority end?
See, that's what I'm saying. So he grew up under that.
Mm-hmm.
So now when he's able to make his own choices and decisions, he sees, man, the principle that was established by my family or whomever, that whomever I was under was bass apples. So now I don't want to serve that. So now what principles am I looking to fall in line with? And then he goes in, because those principles were established because, like you were alluding to, because of hurt, because of things that protection for them. And they wanted to protect you, but they didn't see how they were going against the very principle that they established.
But if I can change it, doesn't that mean it's not a principle?
No, it just means that, because the principle, because where were they getting the principle from? They were getting the principle from life.
Right. But I'm saying if I can change it, I got how your life turned out. I got the experiences and all that stuff. But if I can change it, doesn't that mean that it was never a principle?
No, because I think principles can change. I think principles is.
But who changes principles?
Individual. Yeah.
The governing body is the only one who can change the principle.
I become the governing body of my little foundation over here. I can make it. That's why you have various organizations that have their little, you go in and say, these are my bylaws. And they put on there what they want, what they don't want. And then you would go to a similar organization. What are your bylaws? Because it changed per community.
Let me let that man speak.
Now, I was just gonna say I was leaning there because what I was thinking of while everyone was talking is like, well, when you go to your Greek organizations, you govern under a certain set of principles, and those people who leave their Greeks and go to their lodge because they like to travel, they got a whole nother set of the principles changed because they changed governing body. So it's kind of like both things under the same umbrella. And then when they get up and they go to church, now they're under the bylaws of the principles that governs that church. You know what I'm saying? So many of us are in multiple organizations, and so we were able to maneuver around principles. And that's why I look at the morals, the cultural things shouldn't change, because no matter where I'm at, what I'm governed under, whether I'm putting on my letters or whether I'm designed in a protractor, my morals should not change. Who I am should not be adjusted, because that's a part of me. And so if because I'm over here on this side, where they have these set of principles and these set of bylaws, do the morals that are instilled in me, should that adjust, or should I adjust how I am, or should I be who I am? Carry those things that were taught to me, that my mama gave me. And who governs my mama? I mean, whoever governs my mama. Hopefully it's the Most High, right? Because that's
which is where your mama got her principle. That's what I'm saying. You guys are conflating things. If mama and daddy was governed by the Most High, then that's where they got their principles from. They don't change. The way that they express those are called morals.
Scripture never talked about principles, morals, or anything like that. Principles, when it said train up a child in the way it should go, it was not talking about principles or morals.
That's a directive. That's a principle.
No, it's a directive. It's a law. It's a commandment.
So I think I remember one time I asked, where do y'all get principles or the guidelines? And then I think someone told me that they get it from here, right? So if this is the principles, then I agree that the principles don't change. Correct. Now, that is only if this is the principle. Now, if something else determines the definition of principles, then I think that they can evolve. But if this is what we're saying is the principles, then I don't think that they can change or that they evolve. But I guess I'm trying to figure out, what are we defining as the principles? Because that's if we can't define what principles is, we can't determine on whether or not they evolve or not.
Principles are fundamental truths.
And a principle is a rule or a belief that we have established to be true. Beliefs change. I grew up in the Muslim foundation. Beliefs change. So what I believe today can change tomorrow due to information. So my principles, if I'm saying that this is what guides me, and then tomorrow I'm saying that's what guides me, I'm always ever changing. But when you say I'm sticking with this, like you held up that book, if that's my foundation, then that's the foundation. That's my law.
So I'm looking at principles, and I'm just looking at the first two. I didn't even read 3, 4, 5. I'm looking at the first two, right? General and fundamental truths that may be used in deciding conduct or choice. The second one, foundational propositions that serve as the basis for a system of belief or behavior. So both, when I listen to both of those, I'm still thinking of the way that it's the code of conduct, right? They speak the language that we like. That's our code of conduct, right? But I don't believe so. My code of conduct changes depending on, like, going back to this governing body. What governing body am I under? When I was wearing U.S. Army under my chest, we had code of conduct. We had our we had our core values. We had all this UCMJ. We had things that governed our behavior, our speech, how we stood when we talked to certain people. Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question in relation to that? Could you, being the governor of yourself, could you change any version of the code of conduct?
Under their rule?
Not under their rule.
While you were wearing that uniform, could you change any version of that code of conduct?
No.
Okay, so what was the thing that gave you the code of conduct?
Allegiance.
Uniform code of, I'm about to say the uniform code of military justice.
No. The Uniform Code of Military Justice enforces it.
Right.
It is the code it is the code of ethics. Every person that wore the uniform and civilian are governed by the code of ethics. It doesn't matter how much your belief about it evolved.
Right.
You still had to live up according to it. As you progressed during your military career, it looked different for Sergeant First Class Sergeant First Class Walker, Sergeant First Class Gaddy, Sergeant First Class Martin. But Private Walker, Gaddy, and Martin, nah, bro, that code of conduct didn't mean the same to you then. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The way that you express it, that's the expression of that's your morals. Your morals evolve over time based upon you better understanding it. But the governing principle never changes unless the powers that be went to a room, sat down, and decided, hey, we're going to change this right here in AR 670-1. They can wear cornrows now.
See, but here's where it's different to me, right?
The governing body changes it, yes.
Right.
Yeah, but so here's where it's different to me, though. I get what you're saying. I don't disagree, right? The governing body, I agree with that. But every time I change my hat, those principles adjust. When I take off my soft hat and I put on another hat, that governing body for that organization has a different set of principles.
No.
So, yes.
Because
yes.
I'm hearing you get. Let me say it like
Omegas don't have the same code of ethics or conduct
unless they're in the army, then the army conduct supersede Omegas.
Yes, because of your allegiance. When your allegiance says these people can lock my butt or do whatever, that's why you say Uncle Sam ain't released my butt yet. So wherever I was, whether I was at Walmart, whether I was at Applebee's, I still fell under that. So I always had to act as if I were under that, period. So that couldn't change. Now I could act unseemly, but then I will get punished because I'm still under that. It didn't change.
That's why I say mama fall in that same category. I love mama. Hold on. Wait. I love mama. But listen, when I understand, kind of like what Garfield said earlier, when I understand there may have been some things that were taught to me that I feel as I become better acquainted with what the Most High, the instructions say, if I feel that's not part of the principles, that was just a suggestion.
I get that. We pointed the wrong way. No, my bad. But I'm looking at it like this, right? There was a point in time in the army, right, where you can call certain cadence a certain way. 10 years later, the principles are the same, but the culture changed. You couldn't call them some of them same cadences. You can.
Culture ain't in that word, that question down there though. That's why I said we're conflating.
But what I'm saying is those things that gave us those principles, those publications at the time didn't adjust. It was it just wasn't right no more. You couldn't call what they call Jody calls, right? They
did adjust.
Later on,
but that's what I'm saying. The people who establish it, they come together and they meet in a room, and they are the only people who can change it. You just can't change it. I got what you're saying. Listen to what I'm saying. The powers that be that sit up in the nosebleed areas of altitude in the office are the only people who can change those principles. When they change those principles, then it's given down to everybody within the Army culture. Therefore, now you implement the change. That's why I gave the example about the cornrows. No one was wearing cornrows until they changed it and said that, hey, and beards too. Yeah, that's huge right now. All of those things changed. You could have been Specialist Gaddy and say, I feel I should wear a beard. Okay, feel you should wear a beard if you want to, as long as the Uniform Code of Military Justice say you'll be clean shaven. You can feel whatever you want to feel, but you don't change principles. That's the point I was trying to make the whole time.
So
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know if I got more clear or not, but here's what. But I'm okay with it. I'm okay with having a conversation. I'm okay with walking away, maybe even going back and rewatching it, and then getting more on it. Because I see, the more we started talking, I understand where Roland is coming from a little bit, right? So I understand if this is the governing authority, if this is the principles, then principles do not change. However, I understand someone being able to soak all of this up, soak all of the knowledge from over here, soak all of the knowledge up from over here, and then based off of that, coming up with their own set of principles based off of more information. So I kind of get that too. So at the end of the day, I guess I'm walking away with this question still. I don't have to have it answered. You know what I mean? I like the fact that I'm stuck right here. I like the fact that it's not a clear I like the fact that I don't have a clear understanding on exactly what we're considering principles right here, because that gives me an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper on my own. So I think that's what we're going to do right now. And I think we're going to pause right here. And then we're going to shift down to the next the next question, because I think it's really important, because we all up here have relationships with people. And I remember a long time ago, actually wasn't too long ago, especially when it came to red and blue, when it came to the elections and religion. Those are two things right there where people have very opposing views on, and they have different values about them. So just between y'all or the chat or whoever want to jump on here first. Hey, that's the wrong question, man. What am I doing? There we go. Click the wrong button. So how do you handle relationships with people who have opposing values?
I think this one easy. We just agree to disagree. I'm like, and so when you say how do you handle relationships, right? If I have relationships with people with opposing values, and more than likely it's something tying us together, right? Maybe it's a sibling that we grew up together, or maybe it's a coworker that I'm forced to have a working relationship with, whatever the case may be, right? We just agree to disagree. Like to me that's easy. Like, hey, I'm gonna eat this. Well, I'm not gonna eat that. Well, okay, have a nice. Go ahead and eat. Eat what you gonna eat. I'm not gonna not eat lunch because we disagree on what's right. And I know we're talking about something else. I'm simplifying it, right? Because I see people will spinning eating value. I'm simplifying it, but that's the way I'm looking at it. Like, why do my values or your values have to adjust because we have this type of relationship, right? I can exist in my workspace, you can exist in yours. Now, when we're talking about like lifestyle partners, like can you be my best friend or can you be my spouse, and we have opposing values? I'm just big on how can two walk together except they agree. So I don't know if we can really walk together too long. Sometimes it's important to know when certain relationships have ran its course. This friendship has gone where it can go. We're heading in two different directions, and I'm fine with that.
I think we got to look foundationally, because when we're looking at values, I don't think that when I meet a person, I'm looking at their values initially. Now, overall, as we walk, I started to see, okay, we don't necessarily agree on a lot. We don't live the same. We're not walking the same path. So I have an understanding that our relationship will almost be a pseudo relationship because we aren't diving deep. And we don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to have everything together, but foundationally, there's a way that I will treat you. So I'm not disrespecting you because you're a different race, a different gender, a different ethnicity, or anything like that, because that's my values. I will value you because I value my way of living. So if that's the case, I can have a relationship with a person. But when it comes to certain things, if I go, like when I go home, I go over my people's house, they gonna be puff puff. Nope, I ain't in the circulation of this. They gonna be turning it back. That's not what I do, how I live. So there's some values that I uphold that I'm not gonna put. They will understand when I say, nah, I'm good. I don't, do I have to act unseemly? No, I don't have to do that. There it is again. But I don't have to do that. I can sit up there, and because of my lifestyle choices, this is how I move. I don't have to get ugly about it. I just have to make the stance known. That's it.
It's funny because as you're asking this question, the word I'm looking for is not down here. Because in a world where I can be anything, be kind. So at the end of the day, whatever a person's like, I think this question is more so in relation to the depth and breadth of relationship, not necessarily how I handle relationships with people that I have opposing values with. Because people who I have opposing values with, we don't necessarily have close-knit relationships. So I don't necessarily have to handle them. I have respectful dialogues with them. I have these things called boundaries as well. So that being said, there are certain lines that I won't allow you to cross, and I have a way of saying things to help you to understand you may have went just a little bit too far. So I think when it comes down to it, this question here is more of a depth and breadth of relationships. The people who I have similar values, those are the people I'm closer with because we have more in common. We have a common ground, right? This is what principles give us. It gives us a common ground. Therefore, we value the same thing. So if we have a common ground, that means we have more to discuss. That means more things that we can really deal with when it comes down to what community looks like, when it comes down to what, our more intimate and personal relationships look like. How do you handle this? Or how do you handle this? So when we look at things of that nature, I think what we're talking about is just simply the ability to dialogue respectfully with other people, have boundaries established so that, I don't intrude in their territory. They don't intrude in my territory. And then again, like I said, last but not least, we meet on common ground, and that's where we meet at.
Yeah, I like all those great answers. I'm looking at it as a lot of it has to do with the relationship that I have with the person and what the opposing value is. Some of them, if we got opposing values on certain things, we can't even be friends. We can't even have a good relationship. We can't rock. There are just certain things I'm just not going to deal with. There are certain things I don't want to be a part of. There are certain values that in certain ways that you live your life that I just don't want your funk on me. So I just ain't going to be around you. I'm just being real. So, but if it is somebody that I do want to have a relationship and depending on what the opposing value is, kind of like all you guys, I think was kind of talking about is, we can be cool from a distance. You know what I mean? Like Roland said, when the puff pass and going around, he like, hey, I'm out. We can still be cool. We can be family, but I just ain't gonna participate in that. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely get all of that stuff. And I wrote down, I threw up there real quick a couple of 10 common values: honesty, integrity, respect, compassion, accountability, growth, service, family, faith, spirituality, and then courage. So those were just 10 of the ones. Like I said, I looked up online real quick and then found 10 of them and then just threw them up there. So really appreciate everything you guys have said so far up to this point. Chat, if I know y'all still in there rocking, I really appreciate y'all. If y'all hadn't already, go ahead and hit that like button, share this podcast with somebody else, hit the bell so you can be notified when new content comes up. I got a question up here, but it's going kind of sort of back to the principal question. But I kind of put it up here anyway and kind of see how it plays out. Might not stick on it long because the principles piece, but let's just see where it goes, see how it goes. So, is it more important for you to stay true to your principles or adapt for greater good? Now, with that being said, and what we talked about the last question, if we had to adjust this question, what will we adjust it to?
Ooh, ooh,
Or should we
ooh,
leave it? Go ahead.
ooh, ooh,
What is
ooh.
it?
I'll start off. Principles are for the greater good.
Okay.
So if I'm doing any adapting, I'm adapting my understanding of those principles for the sake of the greater good.
So what you're saying is stay true to your principles. And based on what you're saying, those principles are the
The governing body of my
governing body
existence. Right.
of your
Like I said in the
existence.
beginning.
Okay.
I'm going on mute now. Bye.
You see what he do? And then look, he always go last, and then as soon as he go first, he drop a nugget and then roll out. Get on them, chat. Tell him to add more.
I'm gonna roll with Coach with this one
Swing back.
because
He's pouring his tea.
and I'm just gonna just say, okay, well, we're gonna call it principles. So I'm gonna agree with Coach with that because I think when you say adapt for the greater good, any adaptation, that means you're changing from what you believe. You're changing from how you move to facilitate the feelings of somebody else. That means you're choosing, in other words, like in scripture, when they say, okay, this person has become your God because now you're pleasing them. So if I'm adapting, because greater good simply means go along to get along. It simply means to everybody doing it. So hey, let's all do it. That's what they did before that fire came down.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm somewhere in between there. Yeah, I read that too. I look at it like what's important? Is it the affiliation? Because when we're talking about governing body, right, your affiliation to that governing body is what causes those principles to govern you, right? Because those principles exist. There's principles somewhere that exist that don't govern me, so I ain't worried about it, right? Because I don't have an affiliation there. But if my affiliation is that important, then I'm probably going to adapt for the sake of staying in the good graces of the affiliation of the organization, right? That is more important to me than the things, and this is why I held my position where I held it earlier, because my morals, those things that I think are the things that I carry with me, regardless of where I go. I carry those morals that were given to me, that was taught to me. And so if adaptation causes me to have to throw away those morals, those foundational beliefs that are real to me, then I'm not. What are we adapting for? But then we do have to adjust it to how Coach said, because the principles should be for the greater good of that organization in the first place. But there's sometimes you have to, if those principles are now changing, because I think I don't disagree with what you said, Coach, with adjusting maybe the evolution or the adaptation is my understanding of the principles. But I think a lot of people have used that concept to change principles in a sense. Oh no, we it's just evolved, or we've just understand more. No, I think we just worried about and concerned about what people's feelings are and what people want to do versus what's just overall better for the governing body. If that makes sense, right? But so I'm sticking on. I'm erring on the side of I got to stick with what's true to me, what I believe, what's in the core of me. And so if that governing body is X organization or U.S. Army, maybe it's time the ETS of U.S. Army is causing me to no longer walk in alignment with what I believe to be true, or that's sometimes it's just what it is. So I hold that.
Good job, sir. Good job. It's echelons to it, man. We got to understand that. If we don't understand that there are echelons to it, like whatever is the authority of my life, then I don't get in relationship with any organization that goes against that. So that's the thing that drives my behavior. So when it comes down to, and I hate to continue to beat a dead horse here, but again, we're talking about the power of morals and principles in the modern day world, living by your core. Omega Psi Phi, whatever other fraternity out there, they're not my governing body. They're not my core. That was just an organization I affiliated myself with, but they never will supersede the Most High. So when they, by their quote unquote bylaws, right, say that this is what we're going to do, and it goes against that, then we separate. That has to be the answer, because if that is not the answer, that means I have no clue of who I am.
I liked all of that. The only thing is,
let me add this before you get started.
yeah.
And again, that is if that's your governing body. Whatever a person's governing body is, I'm not telling people what to do. I'm just telling you what I do with my life, right? Whatever a person's governing body is, that should be the authority. And then that drives everything else. So you do not become connected with things at a close level that goes against that thing, because that keeps you aligned.
So I think it is always more important to stay true to your principles. Or adapt to the greater good. That part right there, I don't even know if it's in there. But then I'm asking myself, who is the greater good? And then we end up spinning off on another 30 minutes somewhere else, right? So I ain't gonna do that. So I'm just gonna keep it rolling with this one. No pun intended. I got a scenario question that I want to put up before we get to another question. Shout out to Coach's Corner, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, folks. Got a whole bunch of scenarios. But here we go, folks. You and your partner have been feeling distant lately due to busy schedules and lack of QT. For those of y'all don't know, I think most of y'all know, y'all old, y'all in y'all 30s and 40s. QT stands for quality time. How do you initiate a conversation to rebuild connection and ensure the relationship remains strong? So I repeat it again because I kind of stumbled over it. You and your partner have been feeling distant lately due to busy schedules and lack of QT. How do you initiate a conversation to rebuild connection and ensure the relationship remains strong?
Here's how not to initiate it. We need to talk.
Yeah,
Were you
that'll wrap me up.
speaking? Were you speaking to a particular gender?
See, don't get us in trouble. Don't get us in trouble. Don't do that. Don't get us in trouble.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Not tonight, folks. You're not gonna do that. Look, Roland. That's a person. He just didn't finish drawing the legs on it. That's all it was.
Yeah, so you about to get us beat up. I'm just saying.
So you know what? For this one, I'm gonna start it because I literally just did this. Me and Shell just did this less than a week ago, but it wasn't necessarily because we were feeling distant. You know, it was more so we wanted to keep from that happening, right? You know, maintenance on your vehicle, get the oil changed before you throw a rod, right? So we just happened to be out chilling or whatever like that, and I kind of had my list of some things that I wanted to talk about. I had like some things numbered and written down, and And I was like, hey, babe, I got some things, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, okay. She said, I got mine too. So fortunate for us, she had hers too. So even though we were not necessarily thinking about it at the same time, we were at some point over the last some period, we were on the same wavelength, and we both thought that there was something that we needed to do. So sometimes just bringing it up, I wouldn't always suggest that. I think some of it is you have to know your partner and know how your partner responds to certain things. Like Coach said, we need to talk. For a lot of people is going to mean that's bad news. You know what I mean? So how you approach the conversation is very important, and a lot of that has to do with the relationship and how well you know your partner. So if I wasn't just this situation, I think, in general, you know what I mean, just bringing it up, say, hey, some things, I like to talk about, not necessarily nothing bad, but, I think giving a little bit of context is better than giving none, because I know for me, I don't like walking into conversations blind. You like when Coach said, hey, we need to talk. I'm like, what the heck we need to talk about? At least if you tell me, hey, look, it's something I want to talk about, I used it before, you keep leaving your drawers on the floor, so at some point, you want to have a conversation to see if there's anything we can do to help a grown 49-year-old man keep their drawers up off the floor. So I think sometimes approaching it with a little bit of context, just so the person ain't totally caught off guard by whatever it is the topic is about, may be a good idea. But again, this all goes back to knowing your partner.
As I look at this question, I think it's a simple answer. And I think Nike gave us the answer to it. Just do it. I think, because you say, how do I initiate? Just do it. I think a lot of times we spend, and I'll say it like this, and I will position it like this. I think we spend too much time in doing the mental analysis. Like, if I say this, they will say that, whatever. Stop that. Just do it. Just go say, hey, you busy right now? No. Okay. Can we talk for a minute? Yeah. Okay. Here's what I was thinking. Here's what I'm observing, so forth and so on. I think just being that up front, and I'm not saying you got to have that posture. That's just me. I go at things full bore, right? It's not an aggressive posture. It's just, it's more assertive. I don't believe that good news gets better with time. I don't believe that we need to plan to have a conversation if we're two mature adults. Let's just have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? As soon as I walk in the house, you're there, I'm there, you cooking, great. We can have a conversation right now. I don't necessarily need you to stop doing what you're doing. I just need you to be able to understand what it is that I'm saying while you're doing what you're doing. If I have the intestinal fortitude, and I'm saying that like that, if I have the intestinal fortitude to approach it in that manner, then we can get down to understanding how all of these other things became more important than us spending quality time together. And I will also say that when things, busy schedules and things of that nature, if busy schedules can pull me away from spending quality time with you, the relationship ain't strong. We need to understand why these things have the ability to get us away from it. That's why I keep saying, I'm going to go back to what I was saying from the beginning of the show. Priorities, which are established. Well, I didn't start with priorities, but you establish priorities according to the principles that you have. Therefore, everybody don't get quality time. Therefore, my relationships now have priorities. Well, in your scenario, wife is number two. That's just how I say it. I'm sorry, right? Because for me, the Most High will always be number one. So wife is number two. So if I'm spending time with anyone outside of him, it has to be the spouse. So if things, busy schedule, work, whatever the case may be, and I'm not going to go on the tangent of work right now, but if anything is pulling me away from her, or if pulling you away from him, then you need to search within yourself and ask yourself, why did you allow that person to assume the number two spot? Because that's exactly what it is. In conjunction with that, leave work at work. Stop bringing work home. That's one of the biggest mistakes we make. Now, I got it. There are certain things that we need to do to set the conditions for tomorrow, and that may take 30 minutes or whatever. But if it takes me 3 and 4 hours, that's an additional layer of work. You should get paid for that. but why bring it home when at the end of the day, that's your time to spend with your family? So don't make it more difficult than what it has to be. Just do it.
Okay. All right, I got you. You say just do it, and I get that. So Miss Mindset, right? Miss Mindset, not Mr. Mindset, Miss Mindset,
Oh.
right? How long is that conversation going to take with Miss Mindset? Like you said, you cooking. All right, good. You over here cooking, washing dishes. We can have a conversation now. Miss Mindset cooking. She washing dishes. She gonna want to know how long this conversation going to take. So about how long do you think if this is not the way you're putting it out there, it doesn't seem like this is a hard conversation. So based off of that, what's a again, I definitely understand it comes down to knowing your partner. But what's a time frame that we should be looking to be having this conversation? Because I'm thinking that this ain't an hour-long conversation.
It's a now conversation. That I think it's that simple. Like, to your point, Miss Mindset, when Mr. Mindset come to her and say,
Yeah.
hey, can I talk to you real quick? Miss Mindset, if she doing something, she's like, okay, give me 2 minutes. Let me finish doing this and I'm all yours. So now she's responded to me. I heard her. That was a respectful response. And then now she wants to give me her undivided attention. So now we can have dialogue about this thing. It's not, I don't think it's that difficult. I think if you value each other, if two people value one another, there's nothing that I'm doing that will supersede the fact that you want to have a conversation with me. I can put it on. But now, if like, okay, so like this right here, Miss Mindset wouldn't come to me right now and say, hey, we need to talk.
Yeah,
That doesn't,
yeah.
that doesn't pass the common sense test, right?
Yeah.
But other stuff, it's like, hey, okay, 2 seconds. Let me close this out. I'm on the way. I'm coming where you are so that we can sit down and talk. Again, priorities drive the way that we behave. And if we just look at things from that aspect, I think it's quite simple.
I think first, who is Miss Massey? No,
notionally, man, notionally.
I know. But I think first, when it comes to these things, I think we think that we have to go into it like, let's talk, instead of making it an organic conversation. Like, hey, drive with me to the store. Hey, babe, we ain't been getting no time in, and then you get to tell her what, or her tell you what it is going on, and then sometimes, fellas, we got to come with a plan. We can't just say what we ain't doing or what she ain't doing, what we ain't getting, without coming with some type of plan, so that, hey, I made plans. I don't care what's going on. Friday night, I already had your stuff laid out. Let's go. Let's just do something. Let's have some fun. But when we make it another chore, another meeting, another sit down, that kind of, it runs men off. Like, if you, hey, we need to talk. When I was growing up, that meant something different. I'm like, we need to talk. I'm going to avoid you because I'm thinking, okay, somebody pregnant, something going on. I done did something wrong. That's where my mind used to be. But now, knowing your partner, hey, let's take a ride to the store. And then you just start an organic conversation. Hey, you've been working hard. I've been working hard. We ain't got no time, man. We need to sit up there and sit down and make a plan to where we can spend some time and do this and blase split, versus us saying this. Because people think, like, when people get married, they think that, okay, it's the husband, wife. Then once the kids come between the parents, when they shouldn't be between the parents. Like Coach said, it's the Most High, me, her, and children. And we have to make sure that we articulate time to where we spend that exact order with those that we love and those that we care for.
Did you say somebody pregnant?
Oh, that's what I used to think. When I used to get that we need to talk, I got a bunch of babies and stuff. Like, God, we need
I just want to make sure I heard you right, man. My bad.
Man, there's somebody squirming in their chair right now talking about man over my children. Ain't no husband ain't more important than my kids. But anyway, I'm gonna leave that alone.
Be out there by yourself.
Hey, I just threw it out there and left it,
That's
You
the
know?
available man. 555
See,
555.
I told you.
He can be reached 24 hours a day.
Hey, I'm just saying this is an everyday conversation some people have. But I feel everything everybody said on this one. For me, I don't even know, like, we've been feeling distant lately due to busy schedules and lack of quality time. And I'm just like, then let's make a plan to spend quality time. I'm with Ro. Like, why do we have to have a conversation about it unless we're about to make a plan to have quality time? Like, what are we conversing? I know some of you some of you older married folks, y'all probably got an answer for me, but let's have quality. Let's spend quality time. Let that be the conversation. Hey, babe, I was thinking maybe we should go catch a hotel. We busy right now. We can't go far, but let's go out of town somewhere. Let's go to the city. Let's go do something. Let's just go walk around let's go walk down the river walk. You know what I mean? Like, let's just spend time together. We could fix that problem. Like, and sometimes a lot happen on the drive down to the river walk. You start having conversations in the car. And then things and that, I think that's where that bond becomes less damaged, because you're actually spending time, you're actually talking to each other, you're actually being friendly. I think so much we try to live in this emotional aspect, like we have to have this theatrical feel to our conversations because we're married. What? That is annoying. At least to men it is. I'm saying, I just don't. Every conversation don't have to be emotional. We literally talking about having a date night. Why is that? Why we time on my hand? That's what I feel like. Like, because that's what it sounds like to me sometimes, bro. Like, we gotta get.
Let me.
I think you're about to help me out.
Yeah, I'm about to help you out real quick. You put your little young Thundercats out, and they put y'all up on game. Just quickly coming up with the solution never solves the problem. It just puts a Band-Aid on the problem. We need to talk about the problem to understand why the problem exists. If we never get down to the why and the how, then how do we get to the point of understanding what happened in our individual circumstances that allowed it to happen? So that's why I say you got to talk about it, not just coming up with a solution, right? Because and I'm saying this, I don't think that's what you were saying, but I think that's what a lot of people believe. Let's just solve the problem. Well, no, because that's quality time. Next thing you know, and I'm gonna go to the extreme because that's what people like to do on social media, right? Next thing you know, it's infidelity. Next thing you know, it's finances, right? So if we never talk about the problem, you never get to the point of solving the problem. Therefore, the behavior resurfaces and it happened again. And then you're upset, disappointed, mad because it happened again. But again, I don't think that's what you were saying, but I wanted to say that because if anybody heard just jump to a solution, then you still have this whole problem set that exists. The only thing you did is pull the covers over it for the next time.
Yeah, and I stuck right there on quality time because he gave us, at least in the description, I felt like we had what the problem was because we're busy. And I think when you in a marriage, when you in a relationship, there comes that time where, especially when you're building, you're trying to get to the place where you have the freedom to do more stuff, and I think that's the time where some people start feeling neglected and people start feeling like, I think we get to there's a place in our marriages where we're building, where we're busy, we're trying to create a foundation for the family, for together, so that we can coexist in this space, in this habitation. And I think that's a conversation I don't really hear a lot of people have, is like, how do we exist in these different phases of relationships that these relationships go to, instead. And like I said, maybe it's just me thinking like a man, instead of going directly into my feelings and saying, I feel neglected by you because we working.
But I think you got to have the freedom to speak up. You can't wait till, oh, it's been 7 months and now you mad at something. And that's where the emotions and stuff come in because you didn't do your part or she didn't do her part. When I feel a certain way, I can't hold it. I got to tell it. I got to have enough gump to say, hey, I'm feeling some type of way about something. And now we're going to have this conversation. I'm not going to wait until you do something. And then I say, well, we ain't been spending no time. That's why I did this, that, and other. No, because now I'm doing tit for tat and it solves nothing. All we're doing is arguing now. And we're not coming up with a plan to the betterment of the relationship.
Man, y'all got some good stuff. I want to jump on. I want to do one more scenario question, and then I got one question. So I don't want to take up too much time on the scenario. I want y'all to kind of get in there, you be real precise and really good talking point behind it. But I also want y'all to be real thorough with it, so we really get an understanding about what you're talking about. So this is another scenario, right? So we're going to talk more back to the principles and stuff like that. So you and your partner have a different approach to handling conflicts that challenge your principles of honesty and transparency. So how do you navigate this?
Are you saying my partner's a liar?
I'm just saying people evolve, people change over time. Sometimes we don't see certain things. Sometimes we ignore certain things.
I literally just answered this question.
Answer what was to bring the chat up to speed in case somebody went to go get their popcorn out the microwave.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like previously when I was talking about, putting young Thundercats on game, like you got to talk about the problem set, because if you don't talk about the problem set, you never get down to the root of what caused the problem. Therefore, you never get down to where the behavior came from that created the problem. So when we talk about it, whether it's the way that we handle conflict, your response to conflict, you getting all emotional during conflict, I could care less about none of that. At the end of the day, we're gonna keep talking about it until you get to the point, or I get to the point. I don't want to put, what I'm saying, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm perfect. To where somebody gets to the point to where they're emotionally full. We're gonna take a time out. We're gonna go get some water. We're gonna walk around the house. Go change the oil. Whatever it is you're gonna do, we're gonna have a time frame, and we're gonna come right back and finish this conversation, because that's what adults do. Children throw hissy fits and run. Adults, they stay in the ring and they figure it out, and then we come out the ring together. And so that's the thing. So whatever the problem is, we figure out the problem right then and there, and then from that point on, there's no problem anymore.
Some people might say that transparency might say, I need to go through your phone.
That's not transparency, that's childish.
And that's a mistrust. That's a person that has trust issues and don't want to deal with that. It's not a me issue, it's a them issue. Because like I say, ain't nobody calling your phone for me. It's not. And if something's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. I'm not one of them people. But I think when it comes to the communication part, some people get excited and get overbearing and they like to run the conversation and all of that other stuff. I used to have a little pink bunny rabbit. And I say, when you holding the bunny rabbit, you got the floor. Once you give up the bunny rabbit, you got to shut your mouth and listen. And that means that there's no over talking. And then over time, when you're doing that, like with your kids or whomever, it teaches them that, hey, I got to allow this person the freedom to respond, the leeway to say everything they got to say. And then once they give it up, they got to understand that it's my turn now, because some people like to be overbearing and overtalk one another. And that's not a conducive relationship to where people have the freedoms to say what they want to say, because they think they're going to get browbeat. They think they're going to get beat down by the other person within the conversation.
So I can't even, I'm trying to figure out an approach that I can't even picture this. I'm having a hard time trying to picture which way can you handle conflict. I guess if there's avoidance, that challenges your principles of honesty and transparency. I guess avoidance can be one of those things, but one of us has to be the adult. Like if the issue is we're avoiding the conversation, one of us got to be the adult and have the conversation and start the conversation. But I think sometimes a lot of this happens because we don't talk regularly, you know, and as somebody put in the chat earlier, you know, we conflate the difference between quality time and quantity of time, right? And that's true. But if we have quantity of time, let's make quality of it. You know, why can't we? I don't know when it became hard for us to actually like our partners. Like we don't want to be friends no more. We don't want to coexist. We can't watch. Man, every time I be calling Roland sometimes, and my sister be making me mad because I'm like, who told you to be watching TV with my friend when I'm trying to call them and have a conversation? Talking about y'all watching TV together. Like, who does that? But marriages that stay together, I guess. You know, but and I'm being funny, but there's times when I call him and he talking to me, but he like, yeah, man, and I'm like, what you doing? Because I could tell you your mind is something. He said, oh man, me and Olympia watching this show. I'm like, oh, okay. My next question is, hey, can I hit you back? Because he's watching. Like, when did relationships get to when did this rule come to where we can't like each other? We can't enjoy being in each other's company. So now we're in a place to where we don't talk. Now every time we talk, and I think that's where it's going to, like, Ro, when you talking about having a part 2, part 3, part 4. I think half the problem is because we don't talk, that every conversation ends up having to be a tough conversation. That becomes exhausting. You know, I think if we get back to actually liking the person that we're with, maybe we'll talk more often. Maybe conversations won't be difficult to have. Maybe honesty is something that's automatic because this is my lover, and I know some people say you can't be lover and friend, but why can't I be friendly with the woman I love? I see your face, but that's an argument. I don't know. But anyway, so that's why I'm at with it.
I got you. Hey, first of all, not first of all, I want to jump. We got a couple of questions we got over here started in the chat. One is from Lisa Dove Washington. She asked, was those principles or expectations? This was a while ago, so I apologize for missing it. So if you do want us to get back to this question real quick, then just kind of rephrase it or put the question in there exactly how you want it. And if we got time, we'll get to it. But one question this is current, this is right now. Miss Nodella Jordan, thank you for chiming in. Thank you for putting the question up. This is a really great question. And I am very interested into getting into hearing what these responses are. So coach already got this rubbing his hands. Gaddy over there tip-talking back and forth. I think he done cleaned his glass off, stretching his neck out. So, gentlemen, how much honesty is too much honesty?
Let me get in and get out. Ready?
Get in and get out.
Here's my response. As much as my principles require of me, I'm done.
I got to figure out how much his principles require. That's what we got to figure out.
That's for me to figure out, not you. Right. That's the moral.
But if we have the same principles,
sure,
then yours should be the same as mine.
No, your understanding of it is not the same.
The understanding is not the same.
Right. There are different levels to understanding. And if we're being completely transparent, because we use the miss mindset and Mr. mindset, Mr. mindset is teaching, miss mindset. So miss mindset has an understanding that almost is at the same level, whether it's higher, lower, whatever it does, it's totally immaterial. So honesty within us require us to look to our principle and say, what does your principles require of you?
I think when it comes to honesty, as long as within the confines of what coach is saying, because I'm in agreement, as long as I'm not trying to hurt, demean, or belittle the person. The honesty should be for the betterment of the relationship. So if she got to tell me something, I ain't got to like it. Truth is what it is. Sometimes it hurt, but it's for the betterment. It's to make me better so that we can be better.
When I read this question, I'm assuming like we're talking like the brutal honesty.
However you want to answer it.
But so when I hear it that way, I'm like, I'm back to that my last stance, but slightly different. Why can't we be kind and honest? And then I think then that answers the question. How much honesty is too much. If I'm kind, then it shouldn't be a too much, right? If I'm friendly all the time with my spouse, then they understand that my intent is always with love. This thing, I could be brutally honest with some of my friends because they understand me. They know my humor. They know my posture, my position. They know why I say things. So if I'm telling them something, they know I'm saying it for the good. Why don't my spouse see me the same way? Why is it when I tell them honesty, it comes off hurtful? We can be kind. Mm-hmm.
With her statement right there about the show and the chili, they lied to her. They established a lie as truth. So now when it comes out, if you never lie about it, say, hey, no, I don't like that. Like not, and I don't think sometimes honesty ain't got to be friendly. If Unc keep leaving his drawers on the floor and she done told him 17 times and she come in there and say, get your ish off the floor. That's honest because she's frustrated and she's expressing that and he has to feel that so that he can do something about
it. Can I just ask a dumb question? Who's the judge of too much honesty?
I think that's where it goes back to your first statement with the principles, as you said, because I'm not trying to. This is for the betterment, and I'm with you there.
That's why I said it's simple.
Yeah, and then everything ain't about being honest. I think certain things, because I'm looking at being honest. I'm looking at someone grilling me about a bunch of questions about some stuff. Like you just trying to get too much. It's like.
That's an interrogation. That's not the same thing.
Yeah. I can see it's different than being interrogated, but I think sometimes because I've seen in relationships and I've seen on social media people like, well, show me this. If you love me, you let me see your phone. Let me be honest with me. Tell me the truth. Did you mess with her 14 years ago? I'm just like 14 years ago. Like we only been together for 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Like that ain't a part of my honesty. That why are we even talking about? What happened? You know what I'm saying?
Go do something productive with yourself right now.
I'm just saying.
I'm joking, man. I'm joking.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's my response. Go do something productive with yourself. We ain't gonna play those reindeer games.
Yeah. Go do something with your life. Another great question. The last one, it said Nick D. I'm stuck on this. We can try to hit this real quick. Nick D, I'm stuck on this because why were we not on one accord prior to entering into a relationship? Our principles should be aligned. I'm agreeing 100%. We would have never got to that if we had already had these conversations in the beginning before we tied the knot or jumped the broom or said I do's and all these other things. So definitely in agreement with that.
But that's our age group may see it like that, but younger us, we was looking at was walking down the street. We seen it swinging, and we wasn't thinking about principles. We wasn't thinking about none of that stuff. We was thinking about certain feelings, and I ain't talking about emotions.
To your point, why weren't we thinking about it? Because I'll be honest with you, no one was teaching it to me.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. And ladies and gentlemen, we are about to wrap it up. But before we do, go ahead and hit that like button, all of the other good things, share it, blah, blah, blah. We are going to finish with our final thoughts. Let me find these buttons over here, folks. And then we're going to start our final thoughts. We're going to start with Poor Man's Dr. Phil. Then we're going to go to son of Timothy, Dwayne Dwyer. And then we're going to finish the show with me. Where's that button at, Coach?
Love the conversation. The power of morals, principles in the modern world. And without going into everything already, I think that when it comes to your moral ground, it's all about what you place above you as your governing factor. So, me being governed by the scripture, that's what governs me. That dictates how I treat people. So, I'm not acting ugly simply because other people act ugly. So, the modern world isn't changing me. I will remain the same because the scripture remains the same. And if the scripture ever changes, then I change. But since it doesn't, I will always be kind. I will always be respectful. I will always be stern. That doesn't mean I'll ever be a pushover. That doesn't mean I'll ever receive neglect or receive something that's not due to me. And I will always speak up for myself. But when it comes to my treatment of other people and how I deal with people, it will always be the same because the scripture has told me how to act and how to move, even in whether it's business, whether it's relationship, or whatever that part is. So the modern world shouldn't change you. You should be seeking to change the modern world because the modern world is established on other principles and other guidelines that dictate everything about how they feel they should move and not how he says they should move. That's all I have.
The conversation about morals and principles, to me, it can be simplified as first identifying what governs your life, right? And I always talk about it. I always say, what is the foundation of which we're talking? If we're not on the same foundation, then we're not building the same house. And so how then can we say that we're walking together, right? Because we're working on two different foundations. We got to get to a place to where we actually not only know what governs us, but know what those things are that governs us. The reason why maybe our viewpoints are not the same on what those principles are because we're not actually spending time understanding them. We're allowing ourselves, our emotions, and our feelings to tell us what right looks like. That's the wrong answer. At the end of the day, right don't always feel good. And so we have to go with what is right. Right? What is good? What actually build tomorrow for us and our children and our generations after them. And that should be our focus. So let's get back into loving one another, reading and studying with one another, getting on one accord with one another. And so this way we don't find ourselves in a place to where we have to learn how to navigate life in a community where we don't have the same principles. If that's the case, then what are we doing any of this for? What are we coming together for? Is it just to put our face on the camera? But if we're coming to be united on one accord and to speak the same thing, to say the same thing, to believe the same thing, well, let's hammer these things out. Let's dig. Let's get to know them. And I promise you, the love of the Most High will follow after that. That's all I have. Love you.
I like this conversation. I want to start off right where I ended off at. I think a lot of us struggle, especially people in my generation. I think a lot of us struggle because we were never taught or given core principles to start off with. Sure, we were given morals, we were given standards on how to do certain things, but they weren't necessarily rooted in principles. That's why I love that question that the consistency coach asked at the beginning of this conversation. I think we need to understand a core set of principles that unify us together as a culture. That's first and foremost. There has to be a core set of principles that governs the way that I carry myself, govern the way that I behave, so forth and so on. That allows me to understand some things that are very important. First and foremost, it helps me to understand what is the truth. Then it helps me to understand what is true. It also allows me to decipher what is an assumption. It also helps me to understand what is a fact and what is an opinion. And I think when we understand all of those things together, the only thing that remains constant in our minds is the truth. What is true, although it may be true for you, it does not necessarily mean that it's true for me. That was one of the reasons why I selected Empowering Perspective as a name for this YouTube channel, because multiple perspectives get us closer to true. Not what is true for one person or what is true for another person, but get us close to what is true. Being able to have multiple perspectives internally to challenge assumptions that I have or challenge assumptions that my friends may have, that helps us to understand whether or not my thought processes are grounded in the truth. So when we do not have these things, what you'll hear is a lot of conversations, and they may sound good in time and space, but we got to ask ourselves whether or not it is good. When it comes down to living by your core, we have to go back to the Creator, because he was the one that created you. He was the one that gave you the governing rules in which you are to live and abide by. Those things now must be internalized, processed, and expressed in real time. Those things allow me to determine what I really and truly do believe. That those principles get after helping me to shape my belief system. Because now when my belief system is shaped by those principles, now I should be able to do any and everything that he actually said. And so with that being said, that is my final thought. You're muted, bro.
Great final thoughts, man. Great short. I just want to kind of leave everybody with morals and principles. And, you know, as you've heard, if you've listened to the show, sometimes they can be a little confusing. So at least they were for me. You know, sometimes when we get new information we haven't heard before, sometimes it takes a little bit to process everything, and that's okay. So for me, I think, you know, I'm going to go back and rewatch this video and see if I can, you know, process some more of this information. You know, I think it was a really good show, and I think that it would be something to be beneficial to anybody. I think anybody could rewatch this again, you know. So living by your core, you know, is, you know, when you have certain morals that you live by, certain values and certain principles that you live by, I think that you can have a really good life, and some things can really work out for you. You know, I've lived on both sides of the coin, where I've always had certain morals and certain principles that I didn't always abide by them. And I can definitely tell the difference in my life when I apply and use these morals and live by these morals and principles versus the times that I don't. So that's my final thought for the night. And gentlemen, do you guys have anything else to say before we close out tonight? Nope. All right. I think somebody is on 10:30 in the morning.
Yes, reframing the image of relationships tomorrow morning at 10:30. And also one admin change because of the finicky nature of TikTok right now. Bible study is going to be moved off of TikTok onto StreamYard. So that being said, for those of you who are in the Bible study group, I don't think TikTok is allowing people to renew their subscriptions and things of that nature. So Crystal should have placed in the chat the actual link to get to the base page, and then that way it leads you to where the new subscription is at. So just want to kind of put that out there.
All right, folks, we will see y'all again next Friday night for another episode of the Hearts of Men podcast. And until then, we are out.